Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of my podcast. I'm Magda, and today I want to dive into a topic that many of us have experienced on some level, especially our generation. This episode will be quite different from the subjects I have discussed before. Today we will be focusing on dysfunctions and mechanisms that, although coming from a place of love by our parents, often result in us as their adult children, feeling stuck and losing touch with our authenticity. The topic is overprotective parents. And why do I bring up these kinds of topics? I do it for myself actually, but I have also noticed that when I share, suddenly more and more people say, I feel the same way. I believe that this is the time when we need to work on ourselves the most, so we will not repeat these patterns. Whether we have children now, or even if we are parents or in partnership, or if we want to create partnerships or family in the future, recognizing these dysfunctional dynamics in our family systems and changing ourselves within them will help us build good relationships with our families. We won't repeat mistakes and program our children with these dynamics. And I truly believe that we will also be able to become better partners. And most importantly, we will discover our own authenticity. My friends and a few people on Instagram have been messaging me asking questions like, okay, I get it. You talk about parents who weren't there mentally or physically. You talk about parents who didn't give love, warmth, or maybe they were emotional detached. But what about parents who were too close? What about parents who worried too much? And what about parents who gave too much, who were too protective? What about those parents and those relationships? So, today we're going to take a broad look at overprotective parents. First, we will define what it means to be an overprotective parent. We will explore the possible reasons behind this behavior, both personal and systemic causes within the family system. We will also discuss the impact on the children of overprotective parents, identifying the extremes they might escape to and the qualities or behaviors they might exhibit. And now see if you recognize yourself if any of this. And finally, because I always want to provide a solution and illuminate a path towards it, we will talk about how to break free from the dynamics of being a child of overprotective parents, but especially as an adult child of overprotective parents. Okay, I think we have got a lot of to cover today. So let's get started by answering the question, who are overprotective parents? And just a quick disclaimer. Throughout this episode, I will often refer to overprotective parents as overprotective moms. And why moms? Because in the vast majority of cases, this role is typically performed by mothers. Later on, I will explain why this is often the case. So, who are overprotective parents and what defines an overprotective parent? First of all, an overprotective parent is someone who keeps their child very close, not allowing them to experience the world or even themselves. It is as if they are in charge of and controlling the child's experiences, both of the world and of themselves. The parent holds on and doesn't let go, preventing the child from experiencing their individuality or the world around them. Such parents often don't see their child as a separate individual. Instead, they treat the child as an extension of themselves. They worry excessively and treat the child inadequately for their age. Whether the child is 6, 12, 16, or 30 or 45, the overprotective parent provides the same kind of care. Questioning and control, holding on, and not letting go. This results in inadequate treatment of the child for their age. An overprotective parent also solves problems, difficulties, and tasks for the child, both during school years and into adulthood. For instance, if the child struggles with math of another task, the overprotective parent will feel immense pressure to immediately soothe the hardship by doing it for them. They may throw out solutions, not allowing the child to develop independence appropriate for their age. And now in adulthood, the scenario is very similar. Imagine an adult son or daughter of an overprotective parent encountering a problem at work. The parent, especially the mother, will immediately want to help, asking, how can I help you? How can I take care of your problem? I will come up with a solution for you. The overprotective parent solves problems for their adult child. 2. Not allowing them to handle their difficulties independently. Additionally, an overprotective parent struggles with their child's emotionality and emotions. They don't allow the child to experience their emotions fully. When such a parent sees their child sad, they fear the child will disappear or be overwhelmed by the emotion. So they rush to comfort and act quickly. These parents often don't let difficult emotions reach their child, both in childhood and adulthood. They do not allow their child to experience difficult emotions because, as overprotective parents, they are not capable of accompanying the child through these emotions. And it is as if a light goes off in the overprotective parent's head. It's like, my child is in danger. I must do something immediately. So, these are the main characteristics of an overprotective parent. See if you recognize any of these traits. And now, where does overprotection come from? What internal dynamics fuel overprotection? Well, I have mentioned some of these dynamics. They are both personal and systemic. The first dynamic involves a parent, let's say an overprotective mom, who has made an internal agreement to give her child more than she received from her own parents. This mother channels everything she has into her motherhood, driven by immense anger towards her own parents. This dynamic suggests that her overprotection is secondary to her own parents. In other words, our overprotective mother is compensating for the lack she experienced from her parents by overfeeding us with care, love, worry, and control, and this dynamic is not uncommon. Another common dynamic is when the overprotective parent sees their inner child in their actual child. Unconsciously, the parent projects their own childhood wounds onto their child. The parent transfers their inner child's emptiness to the child and tries to fill their own void by overgiving to their child. Essentially, the parent does not see the child but rather their own wounds and uses the child to address their pain, lack, and deficits from childhood. And everything, it is important, it is happening on an unconscious level. Unconscious. And another, the third dynamic, involves an overprotective parent living in a state of high tension, stress, and neuroticism. For such parents, their love, their care, and control over their child become a way to realize their tension. Imagine our overprotective mom, constantly stressed and needing an outlet. She realizes this tension through overprotection, much like how an alcoholic uses alcohol or a stressed person devours 2 packets of chips. I would even say that this dynamic is similar to someone engaging in rough sex to realize stress. And the parent releases their tension by overwhelming their child with love, control, and care. This is how they let go of their own tension, by flooding their child with it. And the fourth common dynamic is when the overprotective parent holds the belief that the world or people in it are dangerous and threatening. Alright, let's break it down into prime factors. Imagine we have this overprotective mom who, for various reasons, carries the belief that the world is dangerous and people are dangerous. So, when her child is born, guided by this belief, what will she do? She will protect the child from what she perceives as a dangerous world and dangerous people. Thus, overprotection becomes a way of shielding the child from the imagined dangers that live in the overprotective mother's mind. Okay, moving on to the fifth dynamic. This dynamic involves an overprotective parent who, as a child, needed specific support or help in a particular situation but didn't receive it. Today, as a parent, they automatically assume that their child needs the same kind of support. For example, the mother might assume her child needs as much support with peers or at school as she did when she was young. In other words, this overprotection stems from the belief that you, my dear child, need what I needed as a child but didn't get. Another very common dynamic among overprotective parents, especially mothers, is when the mother doesn't have her own personal life. She lacks extensive relationships, passions, and interests, or a job. Her life, I would say, lacks vibrancy. In this scenario, the child becomes her life's purpose and center because she has no life outside of the child. The child becomes her world, and the child then loses a bit of their human function and begins to serve a role more like an object. Essentially, the child becomes the entire direction of her life, receiving all her energy, hopes, love, and relational potential. Let's move on because this is connected to another dynamic, the lack of a quality partnership or a bad partnership. Here we have an overprotective mom who feels unfulfilled in her partnership with her husband, fiancé, or partner. This partnership is not qualitative. She might have enough given up on it, even if she is married. Since she cannot fulfill herself in this partnership, she pours all her love and energy into her child. The child then becomes the recipient of all the love that the partnership lacks. In scenarios where the partnership is essentially dead, the mother might unconsciously put the child in the role of her partner. This is because although she technically has a partner, she doesn't truly have one in the emotional sense. So, to sum up, an overprotective parent can also be born from systemic history, where there are many losses and tragedies involving children. Now let's move on. An overprotective mother can also emerge if she has lost an earlier child. And stay with me here. Imagine a woman who had miscarriage during her first pregnancy. Then her second child is born alive. And this mother might become overprotective of this second child. Why? Okay, there can be two main reasons. The first reason is that she feels an unconscious inner sense of guilt that her body couldn't cope with the first pregnancy, that her body couldn't carry and give birth to the first child, and therefore she tries to make up for this guilty by being overprotective of the second child. It is as if by giving to the second child, she is internally saying, please forgive me for not being able to bring the first child into the world. Look good how good a mother I am right now. The fact that the first child wasn't born isn't my fault. Look how much love I have to give. And the second scenario is that the woman, having lost her first child, becomes overprotective of the second child because she's unconsciously, really unconsciously, giving twice as much love to the second child as if she were giving to both the first and the second child. This often results from unprocessed grief if she hasn't allowed herself to grieve, to fully acknowledge the loss, the pain, the mourning, and sometimes the anger that it didn't work out as she hoped. Then she might accidentally give to the second child from the place of loss of the first one. And let's move on to the next dynamic. An overprotective mom can be an adult woman who didn't have access to her father or experienced her father in a difficult way. And for example, if he was abusive, as a result, she might have grown up believing that men cannot be trusted, that men always fail, or that children need to be protected from men. Now, as an overprotective mother, she might be governed by these beliefs, keeping her children away from their father, thinking men cannot be trusted, and believing it's better for a woman to rely on herself and keep the children close. And finally, the last dynamic I would like to share is related to not allowing the male presence. This is connected to why it is usually mothers who are overprotective, not fathers. Systematically, in the first months of life, the baby is very close to its mother. The child is close to the mom at the prenatal level. We are deeply connected with the mother through our entire body. We experience what the mother experiences, we feel what she feels, and we are deeply connected with her during prenatal life. We then go through childbirth with her and remain close to her afterward. We experience the quality of this closeness with her. We are nourished, we feel her touch, warmth, and see her. Essentially, everyone's life begins with their mother. In the first several months of our lives, we think we are one organism with our mother and an extension of her. And this great closeness and connection with the mother eventually gets relaxed by the father's presence. At some point, we move a bit away from this very close bond with the mother and begin to connect more with the world. Systemically speaking, this is the first connection with the father and the first contact with a male figure. Next to the mother, everything is tight, close, connected, and intimate. With the father, it is about venturing out into the world. Scientific articles and cultural interpretations. It's often the father who introduces the child to new activities. Fathers are typically the ones who teach children more extreme activities like riding a bike or swimming. They build the primary bond through play, whereas mothers build it through closeness and bodily contact. After being close to the mother, the father comes as a relaxation and an invitation to explore the world. However, if an overprotective mother doesn't allow the male presence and wants to keep the child close, she may become glued to the child, never letting them venture out into the world. This dynamic often results in the mother not allowing the child to enter the father's sphere of influence. It is as if the mother and child remain in a perpetual baby mode, with the mother constantly caring for and monitoring the child. This overprotectiveness keeps the child in a state of dependency, preventing them from experiencing the world independently. What can the children of overprotective parents be like? We are looking at children, but also at adults and young adults. Two main subsets of personality emerge from experiencing overprotection in childhood. First, imagine a mother who holds us tightly, doesn't let go, asks many questions, and gives more than necessary. We experience a controlling, fearful mother who constantly checks on us, does things for us, and gives us lots of advice. She can't cope when we are bad or in difficult emotions and doesn't like or allow our experience of the world. Feeling this yet? We have such a mother. What kind of children and later adults do we become due to such an experience? The first subset will be more submissive. If we have a mother who overwhelms us and holds us tightly, we might submit to this. As children and then as adults, we become subordinate, obedient, trained in a sense, stuck in the same reactions of obedience, explaining ourselves, reassuring, and having to reassure others. We are deprived of our sense of self because in every relationship where a child is held excessively and inappropriately for their age, the child does not develop their own identity or autonomy. So we, as children, or even as adults, adult children of overprotective parents, can feel that we don't know ourselves, that we don't know who we are as individuals. We may be unable to make any decision on our own, constantly needing to consult our mother or our father and feeling an inner compulsion to explain many things to her. This creates a codependent relationship where our existence is tied to our mothers. Overprotective upbringing predisposes us to this state. An overprotective mother creates a child who is entirely dependent on her. As adults, we may be frightened of the world and others because we haven't experienced them. Our whole world was our mother. We may also lack self leadership, unable to manage ourselves or various life projects because our problems were always solved by our overprotective parent. In this subset of children who experienced overprotection, there is also a tendency to worry about their mother, raised with the belief that we exist because our mother exists. We may hear ourselves saying, I don't know what I will do when my mother dies. And this dependency makes us see our mother's absence as the end of the world. Then there is the second subset, those who rebel. Up to a certain point, we obey, but then we might gain a broader perspective, often during teenage years, realizing that the situation is too much and feeling fluid. We rebel, break all the rules, and explore the world without boundaries, engaging in extreme activities and relationships without commitments. So this will be people, this will be children or adult children of caring mothers who break all the rules, who go crazy, who reach their limits, who go to explore this world without any boundaries, like I said, because it wasn't so much allowed before. So now, fart everything. I'm going to get to know. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to have wild sex. I go here. I go there. I try extreme sports. I will never say anything again to mom. It's an internal sentence. You will never tell me what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do, how I should live, okay? So it is a bit like being underwater for a long, long time and suddenly taking this wide, deep chaos of air. If we have such a rebellious opinion working in us, no one will limit me anymore, then it can affect our partnership from this level. Because if we associate closeness with flooding, if we associate closeness with imposition, if we associate closeness with control, then we can either have big, white, and fat no bindings for relationships implicitly because no one will ever control me in this way again. Or we can enter into relationships. I will call them unconventional, that is, open relationships, relationships without commitment, temporary relationships, or even long distance relationships. Or we can enter into a partnership and immediately take the dominant position in order to immediately indicate somewhere in the dynamics of the partnership that I will not allow myself to be governed. I will not be fluid. I will not be controlled. I will control. I will not let the other to be above me. I will be over the other. So this type of dynamics can work in children and adult children of overprotective parents. See how perverse overprotection is, because it seems to us, or rather overprotection itself gives the impression that it is a concern. Overprotection gives the impression that it is simply taking care of the child. But in fact, overprotection is taking care of your tension, your insecurity, and your fear. And because a parent who is overprotective does not go with this overprotection from a place of care and love for the child, but from a place of fear, from a place of wound, from a place of deficit, and from a place of tension, from a place of fear, right? So overprotection, although it appears as care, is far, far from caring. Okay, now I will tell you what is the difference between care and overprotection. Well, listen, I'm telling you. Care comes from love. Overprotection results from fear. Care is seeing that everyone is a separate individual. If I am a mother who is caring mother, then I am a mother who sees and knows that me and my child are two separate entities. On the other hand, if I am an overprotective mother, then I feel that the child is an extension of me, not only the first months of my child's life, but throughout the entire life of my child. I have the impression that I'm one with my child. Out of concern, I allow my child to experience, I allow my child to experience both themselves and life. In overprotection, I am afraid that my child will experience, and I'm afraid that my child will experience themselves and their life. When I am caring, I support you as much as possible and keep my fingers crossed, especially if I am already a mother of an adult child. That is when I keep my fingers crossed for my child, because in fact I have already given them everything I could give, all the tools I could give. Her inner voice will be, I will not add anything to this box. As a 50-year-old woman or 60-year-old woman, for my son or for my daughter who is 27 or 35 or 45. On the other hand, when I'm overprotective, I don't support to that extent, and I don't keep my fingers crossed because I worry. I solve the problems. I give advice. I watch. I don't let go. I don't let my child solve their tasks, difficulties, and problems on their own. If I am a mother who gives from a place of care, I give to measure. If I'm a mom who gives from a place of overprotection, I flood. I don't leave air. I don't leave space. If I am a mother who gives from a place of care, I want to be needed by you as a mother in care, in such strong care while you are little. On the other hand, if I am a mother who gives from a place of overprotection, then I want to be needed by you, my daughter or my son, for the rest of your life, exactly the same, in fact, because I need you. So, these are very significant differences between caring and overprotective. Okay, so we come to this. I know my bit is bad, but now the most important part. So, how to stop? How to break it up now? How to break this dynamic of being with your mom's boob all the time? Although it didn't really start with our decision. It only started with my mom's decision that she would put us to this every day. Even if we were 7, 12, 16, 27, 29, 49, or even 50 years old. So, how do you break this dynamic? First of all, please remember that you have no influence on your parents. I'm just begging you. Damn, let's remember that really, then we have no influence on parents. In fact, we have no influence on anyone else but ourselves. So we have no influence on our parents, but we do influence ourselves. What does it mean that we have no influence on our parents? It means that you are not able to put in your overprotective mom or dad's head that they are overprotective and they are doing wrong and this is wrong and you will cut my life. You are not able to change your parents. So please remember that every dynamic that works with a parent, every behavior that is easy or difficult results from something. It is the resultant of something. It is often the result of a wound, a trauma, a past that for one reason or another has not been taken care of. So in fact, parents most often, if they do not work together, parents do not have such an information map as you have. So don't assume that your one or two sentences about your mom being overprotective, and if you tell her, she will understand it and it will magically transform her. I know that absolutely not. So take the energy out of the idea of transforming your caregiver in general. Take the energy out of that idea and start focusing on yourself. Start focusing primarily on your agency, because it is the use of our agency that changes the quality of our daily functioning. So, what is the first step? The first step, we recognize that it concerns us. So before anything, before C, D, E, F, G, we first have the letter A, right? So we recognize if this topic applies to us. Do I have an overprotective parent? If so, which one? Well, here, however, most of the arrows will flow in the direction of mom. So, does the topic of an overprotective parent apply to me? If so, in what situation is it shown to me today? Define this situation. For example, when your mother calls you every day in winter and asks if you have a scarf and a hat. When mom calls and every time she calls, she says she's worried. Or, for example, like your mom brings you food, sometimes even without notice, because she's afraid that you, the child, are dying of hunger, that you have nothing to eat. Or, for example, when you and your partner, children, dogs, hamster, rabbits, cats are going on vacation, and your mother, an overprotective mother, calls from the morning, every hour, every 2 hours, to ask if you are already packed and if you have already left and what town you are at and now at which one and how many kilometers do you still have and what road and slippery and be careful on the turns and who is driving, blah blah blah, 15 phones until you arrive. So first see if it applies to you at all and determine in which situation. Define yourself specifically, but also recognize, give time to recognize when you enter this fucking tango of overprotection, when you say yes to this dynamic, when you also enter this dynamic. So, for example, when your mother calls you every day to ask you if you have a hat or scarf and gloves, and you tell her what you are wearing and dressed every day. So you enter, you accept the invitation to this fucking dance. Or, for example, when you call your parent with every single decision, or you call your mother who you claim is overprotective to consult every single decision. You are the one who enters this tango here. And sometimes even on your own, or you start this tango yourself, out of habit, of course. Or when, for example, you tell your overprotective, as you say, mother, about the details of your intimate relationship, your partnership, or your earnings, your friendships, or every situation what happened in your life. When you actually treat your mom like your best friend. The truth is, mom should be your mom, not your best friend. Maybe you call to your mother, maybe you talk to your mother every day, telling her everything that happened that day. or when your mother asks you, for example, how are you living? Because I'm so worried about you, and you answer assuring her how you live because your mother is so worried about you. So you have to say how you earn money, that you are healthy, that nothing is happening, that you have something to eat, that you have done your shopping for so much and so much, that you are warmly dressed, that something so cool has happened recently. This is also entering into the tango that your mother proposes, into the dance that your mother proposes. Please remember that there are two people working in relationship dynamics, two people. And if your mom comes up with a proposition, hey, I'm giving you an overprotection card, the question is whether you will take this card. So, in the movements of our parents to us, it is never only about our parents. Even today, when we are adults, our parents' movements to us when we are adults are also about us, about our responsiveness, about our response. So we check if it affects me. I check in what situation it affects me from the parent side, and I check in what situations I enter this fucking dance completely, automatically, and naturally. And then, well, the second, slightly more difficult point, we practice setting boundaries. We practice setting boundaries. And to be clear, I really want to point out that it will be difficult. It will be very difficult. I will say this right away. And this can be difficult for both parties as well. Because if, for example, you lived with your overprotective mother in such a dynamic that your mother calls, for example, that she is worried or calls and asks or calls, let's say 15 times when you go from one city to another or one country to another, and you have been on the other side with this assurance, with this closeness, with this acceptance of what is floating as well. And now it is over. Your mom may be here in a lot of misunderstanding. And for you it will be a stick out. And for you it can be a bit like rehab, because your answers that you will give are changing, because the frequency of contact is changing, because calling with all the decisions, with everything important to the parent is changing. As if it changed, then as a consequence it really doesn't work. So everything that has been known to you for so far will be shaken, because it was known to you that your mother calls and you answer every question. It was clear to you that your mother arrives unannounced with dinner, and you always accept this dinner. So it is simply disarmed. And it is disarmed because it will last, disarmed habit. And then, when you start to slowly set these boundaries, and when you start to come out of the habit, you also start to get to know your own identity, authenticity. So, who am I when I don't talk to my mother every day? Who am I when I don't have to reassure my mother all the time that I'm alive, that I'm fine, that I have something to eat, that I'm healthy, that I have spent time with someone? Who am I when I have my own personal space? Who am I when I'm not constantly checked and controlled? Who am I when I no longer have to explain myself? Who am I, and also who am I when I have to make a decision myself. Who am I when I don't consult over and over again? And now you may be wondering how the hell these boundaries should sound, how they should sound. And what I would like to point out is that I will not put words in your mouths, and I do not want to do this. I will give you a few examples, but filter them through yourself, through the use of your words. Filter them through your situation. However, I wanted to give you a few examples of healthy boundaries, functional boundaries in relation to an overprotective parent. So, for example, if your mother call and ask and worries and controls and wants to advise, and she asks about your personal life, like dating or I don't know, conflict at work, right? It is so. Okay, flooding in these questions in consulting. So one of such functional boundaries can be to say, Mom, thank you very much for your concern. I'm 25, I'm 30, I'm 47, 59, or 61 years old, and I'm sure I can handle it. Thank you for your concern. That is, we immediately establish our place of adult competence with our age. This is the first example. Another example of a functional boundary could be, for example, if your mom, for example, asks about your the same private life, datings, or I don't know, asks about your partnership, some very large, intimate details, or how much you pay for this installment, and can she help you in any way here? So, by all means, Mom, thank you very much for your concern. Thank you very much for asking. Please, let's not talk about my earrings, or let's not talk about my sex life, personal life, or let's not talk about my intimate life. If you want to talk about something else, let's talk about something else. What would you like to talk about? See that in this boundary, as in all the boundaries we set, there is no room for a question mark here. Setting boundaries are declarative sentences, not interrogative sentences. So we don't ask, Mom, can we not talk about my intimate life? Please, let's not talk about my intimate life. Please, let's not talk about my earrings. Or an example of another functional boundary, when mom calls, when you go on vacation somewhere and mom calls where you are, at what town, and how many kilometers per hour, and what road, what traffic, blah blah blah, is by all means such a functional boundary. Example, in such a situation it could be said, Mom, we won't call when we leave and off the road, and when we arrive, or I will get back to you tonight when we arrive, or tomorrow morning. Simple messages. So see that in each of these messages we are not trying to change mom. We not behave like, Mom, stop asking me over and over again. Mom, why are you controlling me? No, my mother has such a beauty, and now I'm looking for my safe space in relation to this beauty, and only you will know where it is. And because I won't answer this question anymore, well, I won't tell you. On the other hand, I accept my mother's beauty as she is. I accept my mother's behaviors exactly like she is. And being aware that my mother may never change, and in relation to the beauty of my mother, I look for my own safe space. Okay, that is all about overprotective parents. I have feelings that this episode was heavily saturated with valuable information. So I'm curious, what is your story of an overprotective parent or being a child of an overprotective parent? I'm also curious what you have found yourselves in, and I wish you with all my heart that this episode will transfer to you what is most appropriate for you and what is most available for your relationship with yourself and for your relationship with your parents and the people around you. Thank you so much for today. Bye!